Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to another edition of Infection Podcast. My name is Nick Craig. You can follow me on X at Nicholas M. Craig or check out our website, infectionpodcast.com. Joining me as always, Brian with an I, Aldridge. Brian, missed a show last week. You better have a good excuse for it. Why were we not here last week?
So last week we had to put it off because, well, my wife decided she couldn't wait any longer to have the baby.
Congratulations.
So we were in the hospital for a couple days. Well, she was, but everything's good. The baby's home. She's doing good. She's growing, healthy. The birth went perfectly. So
This is the gender of the
this is
child.
a girl. Like we now have a girl other than my wife in the house.
That's going to be interesting in about 17 years.
I know. Well, yeah, with all these older brothers and then me and her mom.
Yeah.
She has no chance.
It's going to be very interesting, yes. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we're excited. If you do want to find me, of course, online, if you can find me at Boise Computer on X or at Brian Aldridge on Gab, Getter, Truth Social, whatever's still alive out there. I don't know anymore.
You know, Brian, you know what you're not going to be able to find anymore is servers for the day before, because it has been 45 days since the game launched. The day that it launched, the company announced that they were shutting their studio down, and here we are, less than about a month and a half or so later, and it's gone. She's dead, Jim. It's all over.
Yeah, and this was kind of a shock, but not a shock. I mean, we've talked about this a little bit, but these devs, this is one of those projects where a bunch of people get together and say, yeah, we can do that. Well, they've come closer than most people do. They did a pretty good job of it. I just think they weren't ready to maintain this big of a game when money doesn't flow in easy. There's sometimes money flows in easy for games. Right now is not the time. And we had our whole, 2 weeks ago, we had our show where we were just talking about layoffs and studios shutting down and everything else. Not a good time to try to get your feet going and on the ground for a game studio, and they found that out. But I heard that there was one person who kept playing up through last week or the last week or two. There's one person online playing the game, and now they won't be able to play it at all. And I heard that there's people trying to make mods for offline gameplay and things like that. I don't know why not do that? I know they don't want to maintain it, but why not just release one that people can play on their own?
I can tell you why, and it's if they're truly filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, or they're trying to be acquired by somebody else. If you give away your asset, which is your game, well, then it's.
I'm not saying give it away. If for people who have purchased it already,
they did automatic refunds though. I mean, they did all the refunds on everything. If I'm them, and this is a bold statement, but I'm going to make it. This might be the biggest colossal failure of a video game ever in the modern era. I mean, has there been a game that has come out, the studio has announced that they're closing the day after the day that it comes out, and then 45 days later it's just kaput, gone? I don't know that's, I'm sure it's happened with super, super small games, but as IGN notes in this article, this was previously the most wish-listed game ever on Steam. This is not some fringe indie project that 8 people knew of. This was the most wish-listed game on Steam, and within a day of it releasing, it was already done, and now 45 days later, it's completely gone. I don't know that that's ever happened before. And since we've been talking about stuff.
This is something that was very unique, but one thing, at least they didn't sit there and just kind of let it sit there dead for a year without giving it any attention, where the audience is just what's going on? Because we have had happen. If you remember, was it H2O?
H2O Waterworld?
Game? That one was one where, it might as well have been shut down by the time, there was no support for it, no updates, things weren't working right. The online part of it was kind of nuts. That was the same thing. They had a group of people who made a game because they wanted to, but supporting a game going forward and fixing bugs and doing that all at the same time takes a team, pretty big team. And unless you have a small game that you can maintain yourself, you need that big team, and that takes money. And most people starting a studio don't have a bunch of extra cash. The ones who did, one thing I was thinking about this earlier, the ones that do make it, if you look at, Minecraft was one early on. That was one where he kind of got that off and going on his own, did very well, but he maintained that as his own project for a long time. The other one is not Roblox, the
Unturned,
one of the zombie one.
Unturned.
Unturned, yeah. Unturned is another one where he's maintained it and has been able to keep up with the bugs and improvements and kept his project small enough in a way to be able to do this. These guys went too big on their own. Yeah, now if you look for a game that's been out as long as it has, he maintains a reasonable player base.
25,000 people is nothing there's nothing to snuff at. I mean, this is a serious game.
We're at the drop of it right now. If you look, it jumps over 50K on average.
Yeah.
And 40. Then, there seems to be a day, which is, what day is that? Was that last Monday or something? Can you go back to the previous dip? Today's a Wednesday. That's a Wednesday in the UTC.
Friday.
Okay, yeah. And then Friday they
maybe an update was going on or something. Who knows?
Well, it says 30,000, but it shows it all 29,000. That's weird where it shows it. But,
this is the scale's 50 to 25, so that's why it looks like that. Yeah, it's the scale's a little.
So there you go. I mean, if you look at that, he maintains a reasonable amount of players, and it's pretty much one guy.
Yeah, I mean it's
Lord Nelson, I think they called him.
Yep. I mean it's up here. It's the 33rd most played game on Steam right now. I mean that's pretty legitimate.
Not a kid. He's getting older now, but essentially a kid in the industry is maintaining that whole thing and has one of the top games on Steam by himself. Now that's the way to do it. Start it up slow, grow it to where you have the ability to maintain it. These guys went too quick. They didn't have any betas, really betas for fixing issues. They just released it.
But so let me throw this at you. You talk about Unturned. You talk about Minecraft. Let me pull back the Unturned graph. When did Unturned come out? Because this game, Unturned, has been out a hot minute. I mean, it is not a.
I mean, at least 10 years maybe? Has it been? It says
2017. So I mean, 7 years ago since that game's been out.
7 years. Okay.
That's what the Steam DB says. If it was in a different, it may have been listed under a different
maybe
Steam
a test
ID
version
before
of it
that
early on beta.
or something. But Brian, I have to throw this at you, and I don't disagree with what you're saying. But I feel like we're in a different era of gaming now. I don't know that you could release a game like Minecraft today with if you played Minecraft, 1.0, or it wasn't even 1.0, it was 0.19 or 0.3, whatever. I mean, I remember getting it in middle school. Very, very basic game at the start. Yes, there was some little things here and there. Very basic game. Unturned, the start, very basic game. Even games like Ark, which came out around a similar time. Not that it was basic. It's not in the same realm as Unturned or Minecraft, but significantly adding features over time. I saw DayZ on that list with over 33,000 people currently playing. Games that started off more rudimentary.
And they started out fairly basic, too. If you look at how Rust came out, they've added a lot of features over time and improved it a lot. But when they first came out, people were upset it didn't have a lot of the features that you would expect in a game like this. It didn't really have any story mode and still doesn't, from what I understand.
It does not, correct.
So, but I think that's the secret, is it has to be something smaller to where you then build it up.
But this is my question to you. Can you do that in 2024? And
only if you have something groundbreaking. Minecraft at the time was groundbreaking.
You're right. Yeah.
What was groundbreaking. That's what allowed him to make something that didn't really seem to have much, but in the realm of what it was huge because it did something that no other game could do at the time. Unturned, I think for him, it was the free-to-play aspect of it really helped him out, and he kind of found a really good niche to be able to make money off of it. So I think that worked for him to where because it was free-to-play, people accepted that it was more simple. Sure. And then he made it, even though it's a simple look, a very complex game over time. Today, there are games that look very simple, but there has to be a hook with the gameplay. There has to be something that pulls you in and just like you're like, oh, that I can't stop. I can't put it down. My wife's been playing a game where it's a phone game where you sit there and push, to the beat. Like there's songs and it's kind of like a Guitar Hero. Yeah, type Beat Saber type of thing. Very simple game as far as a concept. Now that one would be tough because of all the music licensing. But if you could come up with something like that, that's an easy game to put out that can get people hooked. The hardest part of that, and just find one that doesn't have all the traps of music licensing. So I think there are ones out there, but you just have to figure out what is something really fun to play that I would want to try and build on that. Here, instead of that, they wanted to make a survival game. There's a million survival games. Okay, well, what about your survival game is different than any of the other survival games before? Okay, then they figured out a big open world survival game was very difficult. So then they made it to where it was, an extraction shooter?
Yep.
In the end. I mean, they obviously weren't going for a vision because they changed it partway through because they realized that was hard. And then they came out with something different in the end. What do you expect? Obviously, you didn't have a vision that you felt was groundbreaking that was going to hook people. If right towards the end you said, that's too hard, let's do this instead.
Okay, but I still don't think I still don't think you've answered my question. Can you release
what, can people do it today?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Back in 2011, whenever the hell Minecraft came out, I feel like people were a little bit more forgiving, patient, and willing to hold out for those eventual features. And I know it seems like 2011 wasn't that long ago, but it was 13 years ago. I mean, things have changed dramatically in that period of time. Brian, I don't know that people are willing to do that anymore. I mean,
well, look at H1Z1. I mean,
sure.
When H1Z1 came out, do you think if they turned around and released H1Z1 today, that anyone would give it a second look? I don't think so, because the advancements that we've made even since the beginning of this podcast in what people expect graphic-wise, functionality-wise, game engines have changed dramatically over that time. The Unreal Engine 5, even Unity and advancements they've made, people can easily put out a game that far surpasses what H1Z1 was able to do at the time. Just easy, it'd be easy to do that. And so if a company like Sony were to turn around and put out that same product now, people would say, what in the world are you making? Like, why are you guys being so lazy? You guys are using the same engine that you made on your 15-year-old project. That's what they'd start throwing out today, where they didn't for some reason, 10 years ago? They weren't throwing out these things to them. Something's changed in the past 10 years with game engines to where there is a super high expectation now of what it's, and I think with AI, it's only going to get worse because people will be able to put out simple games much easier.
And I hear that. And let's be clear with this. Simple games are not bad. I mean, there's nothing wrong with a simple game. When you look at the day before, what was their fatal flaw? And you already touched on it, is that they promised they promised this incredibly complex and revolutionary, shocking game that was not feasible or practical really at all. And with that, similar to one of my favorite games of all time, No Man's Sky, you set everybody up for failure when you do that, when you promise the world. Now, No Man's Sky is an example of a game that was able to overcome that. DayZ is an example of a game that was able to overcome that. The first versions of DayZ, the standalone, were absolute garbage. They didn't have the most there wasn't even vehicles for like over 2 years. I mean, it wasn't even close to what the Armama DayZ was at the time when that was really popular, probably 2012, 2013, 14, somewhere in that ballpark. So it's not that a game has to be complex to be good. It all comes back to something that I've talked about a lot, Brian, and you and I have talked about a lot, managing expectations with these games. And that right there is, I think, what a game like the day before completely missed.
Well, and I think putting out a game with whatever features and things you're going to put in there, like whatever you promise, do those well. Because I remember when we first watched the tutorial, not the tutorial, when we first watched that sneak peek that they put out, that with the scene of them driving through the mud and having the the track marks through the mud that were in real time. And I said at that time, I remember saying it, it'd be cool if they can do this. I don't think they'll be able to pull it off. They're doing things in a very limited environment that they won't be able to pull off in an open world environment with 100 players on a server. Like I was talking about that, and that ended up being the case. That's why they went to a limited number of players extraction shooter, because what they created, they couldn't put 100 people on a server and maintain all those unique characteristics. You can't make it to where, let's say 100 people run to one spot on the map, and then you're trying to transmit to every single one of them, every little deformation that you've made with mud from every vehicle that's driven through that, and you're trying to transmit that. You're going to lag everybody out on the server. That's the kind of thinking you have to have nowadays in this type of a game. And when I saw that, I said either they're going to have to do some really crazy coding to make that work, or it's not going to work, which it sounds like it didn't work, and that's what they found. And then they changed their concept but if you'd have had an experienced person on their team, that would have been like, hey, that's not going to work how you've done it. That's not going to work how you've done it. That's not going to work how you've done it. That would have managed expectations, but the fact that they put these things in their demos that they thought would be a cool idea, that they just, sure, you can program it for your 5 people running around and it'll work, but it doesn't work in the real world. And it showed me how inexperienced their team was with the fact that they didn't see it. Someone on that team should have seen that. If I called it out with the first preview that I saw and I said, this isn't going to work, how does that whole team of programmers not see, with supposed game development experience, not see that that's not going to work? That's what worried me. And so it's probably good that they didn't continue forward, because if not a single person on that team had at least that much experience to see it, how are they going to continue going forward and growing it to something huge? I just don't think they could have.
No, they couldn't have. And based on what we saw originally, they scaled a lot of that back. I mean, they had to.
Oh yeah, they had to
make those major changes. They did, and then it still was an abysmal failure.
Oh yeah. That's the thing. But also, when you turn around and deliver something that's not what you promised, the people that all wish listed it and said, because we've heard over the years many times, people want a open world survival game. People want a zombie open world survival game. They say they want all these things. Sure, you want that. It's a very niche audience that wants that, but they are pretty devoted. Well, you got all those people to wish list your game, and then you didn't even end up delivering that. People don't. I mean, sure, there are people that like extraction shooters, but that's not the people that wish listed your game.
No,
the other people, they all felt baited and switched and baited here with what you delivered. Now, if you had advertised it as an extraction shooter, you would have gotten all the extraction shooter crowd. They would have been like, "Oh, this is so cool! I can't wait!" And maybe you wouldn't have had to close so quickly. But you know what? All the people that got it realized this is not what I wanted, started hitting refunds, and then you don't have enough to operate anymore. And I have a feeling that's probably what it, once they realized they weren't making any money to continue developing for the next month, what do? You're going to work for free? You have all this whole team work for free when you need to pay your bills? Right now the economy's tough.
I think a lot of the team was volunteer for this game, as I dug into a little bit more, but I mean, it wasn't all volunteer. I believe there was
with the hope that it would profit.
Of course. Yes.
That it would take off. And when you see that that's not going to happen, what are they going to keep working volunteer and say, well, might turn around? I mean, that's just not going to work.
You're right. So there it is, ladies and gentlemen. The day before 45 days it came out, it is gone.
45 days later.
45 days later, it's completely gone. I believe full refunds and all of that stuff have already been complete. What a freaking disaster. Not good.
Yeah.
And let me say this to end on it, and obviously you can jump in if you'd like. Not good for the industry as a whole. There's a lot of skepticism on early access, rightfully so. There's a lot of skepticism on these it seems like, Brian, the genre that we originally started with, the zombie survival genre, has had more abysmal failures and missed promises, missed expectations, failed communication than seemingly any other genre. I don't know what it is about this this specific little niche of video games that is so impossible to do, but nobody seems to be able to do it.
Yep. Well, I want to talk about something else here really quick that
sure.
I kind of will lean a little bit into this. PC Gamer has an article here saying PC is the most dominant it has been this decade, as 2/3 of devs say they're targeting the platform. This is when you start to see a lot of these test games that aren't fully fleshed out, because the development to put things out for Xbox, PlayStation, there's a lot of work and expense and testing and verifications, making it ready to be released on those platforms. It's not something that you do testing on as much. And I have a feeling that the reason that this is happening is because they are going to try to do the thing that they've always, done in the past, is put out games in this highly alpha state so that they can pay for development through the process. Which the last time we really saw this happening a bunch was when the economy was bad the last time, right? And that's kind of what started the whole H1Z1. It was during that time when we were having kind of a bad economy for a little while. And I have a feeling that that's why this is going to happen, because they can get these whole alpha, pitch money through the process, or put it out in early alpha and see if people are interested, so that you don't crash after you've already put in, 10 years or 5 years of development.
Not only 5 years, but I mean, if you're talking about bringing a serious console game to market, you're talking about tens of millions of dollars. That's not something you don't just dip your toe in console development. You've got to, in years past, it's different now, but in years past, you had to purchase, $5,000 dev kits from Microsoft or PlayStation to build your game on. It was not something that you just casually decided to do. And we've seen a lot of success. Minecraft, a great example of a game that would not have been practical or possible on a console at launch. Now it's got console ports and it's got a whole bunch of players, and it's had those for over a decade or close to a decade at this point. It lends itself well to that. And, the
testing new technologies too. I really think that that's it. They're really pushing into AI. They're pushing into these new areas of game development. How are you going to do that? You're not going to do that on Xbox and PlayStation, because it's too hard to do iterations or do things that they haven't quite approved. I mean, look, you're showing the graph here. 66% of the current projects are being done for PC, for game development. And so, that's huge. Of course, PC and PlayStation and Xbox together is above that, but still, that's really big. And I think it does come down to that. I just think it comes down to, right now, they're trying to figure out how they're going to profit and live through the economy. I mean, 2 weeks ago we did a whole show pretty much on the state of the economy. I mean, Nick, if you look at the section of our show notes of just since our last show of what's built up in our economy section, we have almost, again, a whole show worth of negative economy news that we're not going to throw at you again today, because we don't want it to, just be depressing.
Well, here's some great.
That's where we're at.
Here's some great news for you. I saw this on Twitter like 2 minutes ago. eBay cutting 1,000 people, 9% of its employees gone.
Yep. Yeah. Google's doing the same thing. They laid off 1,000 employees. I mean, it's just they're claiming, for when we do our next economy one, we've got some really interesting topics. They're saying this is going to go on for up to 2 more years of this. How are all these development studios going to survive? It's going to be being really creative and figuring out ways to make money, or cutting your costs down to the minimal. And a part of that is make a PC game that's really easy to maintain, and hopefully, just throw out a bunch of PC games and see if some of them stick and trend. That's what it comes down to. I think that's what they're hoping for, is they'll throw out a lot of prototypes, see if something sticks. Because, I mean, look at simple games like, what what's that one? The Imposter. What was that called?
Among Us.
Among Us. Fall Guys. Just some games that have a super simple concept. There's not a ton of work that went into them other than, well, with Fall Guys, making levels and some, making the character work with physics. Among Us is just programming in the gameplay, a very simple game, but look how hot those got. I think that's what these studios are going to be looking for, those simple games that don't take a lot of money to develop, that will take off and kind of make it through this next year or two of a horrible economy. And that's the PC market that lets you do that. That's the only thing I can see that's pushing you towards that.
It's also the market or industry or genre, whatever you want to call it, that has the easiest barrier to entry. I mean,
the least amount of obstacles to get into it.
Yeah, I mean, you can literally start building a video game for free by downloading Unity or Unreal. I mean, the cost is literally zero to start. Yep. So that, of course, lends itself to that as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, and they talk about their interest in blockchain technology, NFTs.
Sure.
I think that's kind of faded away. I think it used to be here. They show 77% of studios have shown they're not interested in that anymore. I think because they're saying that it doesn't. People aren't trying to gamble in a video game in that way unless that's what it's all about. I mean, it's hard to put these things in there without turning the whole video game into a blockchain or cryptocurrency type of a scheme. But this is the survival mode. So we'll see here if over the next year, it's a big. They've got the new Ark coming out here pretty soon. I think that's going to be a big one that's going to take off. It seems to be that games that have mods seem to take off a lot better on PC. And, that's one benefit that also kind of pushes that whole PC market. But if you could make a game, a cheap way of making a game is make a base of a game and let people mod it for you and add a lot of content and let it get hot that way. Arc has kind of done that. There's a lot of ones that have done that. That's probably also what we're going to be seeing. Plus, I don't know what kind of restrictions they have with generative AI assets and things like that on Microsoft's platforms or Sony's platforms. There may be some restrictions that they put in there and saying, well, you can't put this on there if it's using AI art for whatever reasons. You don't have to worry about that on PC. And Steam has already said that they're not going to be limiting those things. But when you're dealing with Xbox Store, PlayStation Store, if you don't pass their tests, how else are you going to get in that market? You're stuck. Your game doesn't come out. So I think that's another risk that they're wanting to avoid. I just wanted to mention that because I think that kind of plays into things that we've been seeing in the market. But will it continue that way? PC, is it going to stay hot for 2 years until everything kind of recovers? Because it certainly was when we first started this podcast. I just remember it was all PC at that time. All these kind of games were all PC. There wasn't anything else.
Yeah. And, it's changed a little bit because now you've got, it's a lot easier to develop console games now than it has been in the past. It is, especially on the Xbox side. I can't necessarily speak to the PlayStation side of it, but on the Xbox side, from everything that I've read, Brian, and jump in where I'm incorrect here, it's essentially like you build your game on PC and you click a button and it exports it for Xbox. It's a lot
using
more
a mainstream engine.
It's a lot simpler to do than in years in situations past.
Yeah, and we'll see, because that's one thing that Unreal Engine has really brought to the table. Sure, you're developing it for PC, but with a click of a button, as you said, you could also go. But when you're doing your initial testing, that's why I think they're going to be going back to this kind of, we're alpha testing the product for you, because you can do that on PC. And then once they feel like it's complete, then they'll release their PlayStation and then their Xbox versions.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference on where we go from here? We've got a couple different categories.
I do not.
All right. So, let's go ahead. I want to talk here for a minute on AI, because
Okay.
this is something that kind of lends into what we just talked about as well. This whole AI, as far as NPCs thing, NVIDIA has released. Did I don't remember if we ever showed. I was watching videos where it showed their product that they created, where it's powered by NVIDIA AI, and
we
it's
did
NPCs
show this
talking.
one where they're in the little shop.
Yeah, they're in that little ramen shop.
I'll show it again.
Right?
Yeah, let me pull it up here and show it again. Then.
Well, and they've got another one in there. I don't know if that's just the standard. Maybe that's the one that we ended up watching that they have in this article.
Yeah, let me see. This one of the articles more of a commentary. Let me see if I can find the original video.
But I think this is going to be one where, for especially something like GTA, GTA 6, I don't think it's going to have anything like this. But I almost would guarantee you that GTA 7 is going to have AI implemented to where the characters are moving and doing things in more realistic ways. This is all built on Unreal Engine 5, but it's one way that you don't have to have necessarily voice actors. These characters can be computer generated voices that they're talking with. You're not really giving them any lines to say. You're just giving them a story background that the world's based on, and then you let the AI come up with the line, the script lines for you. Were you able to find it on there?
We showed this raw video, and all I can find now is like commentary tracks on it. I'm trying to find, because all the videos are from CES. I'm trying to find the original video.
Seconds through the video that's in that article, about 50 seconds into it, you can hear them.
Okay, let me.
But they do, they talk over it.
Yeah, there was. Give me a minute. I know there's a video we showed probably like, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago, that showed just that scene, but I can't seem to find
NVIDIA AI demo.
Yeah, all I'm finding is a bunch of CES coverage of people talking over it. I'm trying to track it down.
Yeah, trying to find like the raw one.
Yeah, the one that we looked at in the past.
What? Yeah, because here when they're all talking, it doesn't just have the one by itself. But this person was saying that they felt that the responses on this one were frighteningly good. I think that this is the future as far as saving money. There's been.
Said I think I found it. Yeah, I think this is the one we watched in the past. Hold on, let's see.
RTX rendering technologies. NVIDIA collaborated with Convey, an NVIDIA Inception partner, to showcase how developers will soon be able to use NVIDIA Riva, Nemo, and Audio to Face for AI-powered speech, conversation, and animation. These models were integrated into the Convey Services platform and fed into Unreal Engine 5 and MetaHuman to bring Jin to life. Please take a look.
Hey Jen, how are you?
Unfortunately, not so good.
How come?
I am worried about the crime around here. It's gotten bad lately. My ramen shop got caught in the crossfire.
Can I help?
If you want to do something about this, I have heard rumors that the powerful crime lord Kuman Aoki is causing all sorts of chaos in the city. He may be the root of this violence.
I'll talk to him. Where can I find him?
I have heard he hangs out in the underground fight clubs on the city's east side. Try there.
Okay, I'll go.
Be careful, Kai.
So there you go. That's the little AI demo.
And right now, if you listen to the voices, the AI's voice seems a little flat.
Sure,
that gets fixed with time. That's something where they'll come
easily
up with,
fixed with time.
Using AI, they'll be able to replicate the way voices are supposed to talk and fix that. But as far as the content, I mean, they seem very much like pre-written lines. They're demoing a person talking on a microphone to the game.
Mm-hmm.
So it's taking whatever you say and giving responses, and it feels very scripted. Of course, I'm sure they wrote all that out to see roughly what would come back for the demo, or did multiple recordings to get the one that they wanted. But they'll get to a point to where it feels like you're talking to a human. And imagine how many of the games that you'll start to see virtual girlfriends. I mean, you already see these sort of things, but virtual girlfriends, even some sort of therapy, like all these things will end up being this. I've seen shows that are futuristic where they have, people going to therapy and really just talking to a computer. I think that's going to be the future because honestly, a lot of people just want somebody to talk to, and that's a lot cheaper. And you can either get a girlfriend or you can get someone to talk to. And I'm worried about what that's going to do to the mental health of everybody when they start talking to these people, and that's their interaction with the outside world. But we were in the generation where people on computers, like, you weren't talking to people in person anymore. You're talking to somebody you've never met a lot of times in person and considering them one of your best friends. Well, soon it's going to be an AI that people consider the best friends.
Oh, there's no question about it. An AI girlfriend would be a whole hell of a lot cheaper.
Yeah, that's true. And so, but you got to think of it. There won't be any fights. What are you going to have a fight with your AI girlfriend?
Well, yeah, you have to. If not,
be like override command, be quiet. I mean, that's what it's going to end up being.
Pull the plug, shut the computer off. I mean, yeah, that's how you handle those problems. Finish it once and all. But Firebomb notes the same thing. The voice is very flat, and yeah. That, to me, that stuff that's the easy part. The hard part is, I think, getting the implementation, the little polish and the things. I mean, look at what's going on right now. What's one of the things, whenever you look at it, one of the telltale signs of an AI generated image is what, Brian?
Well, usually the fingers aren't right.
The fingers. the fingers. Yeah. They have got it down like 90 some odd %. And the thing that they're dealing with now are the fingers. And that will be something.
And some of the ones I recently did, the fingers are perfect on.
Yeah.
And so I think
it's not that hard to do.
They're fixing it. It's going to the same thing with the voice, like Firebomb mentioned, the flat voice. These things are going to get fixed to where soon, when you call support, you're no longer going to be talking to a person for the first initial. Right now, when you call support, you can tell when it's a computer saying, "Tell me your account number."
Yeah, let me check on that for you. Yeah.
I have found, whatever.
You know what my favorite is?
Something
is when they do the fake typing sound effect. You'll be like, 116822. Oh, I found it. And it's like, damn it, I know. This is obviously not real, but they do it anyway.
But I think this is going to be to where people are interacting with AI on a daily basis. There's a lot of pushback, though, because where are all the voices coming from? Like, they're training them off of who?
Well, that's been the big issue.
Voice actors are pissed because they're not getting the jobs. I mean, at some point when they get this down enough, who's going to pay a voice actor? What's it going to do for cartoons? When you make a cartoon, are they going to have actual voice actors anymore?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Computers and AI are great and will be great, but there is always going to be the need there's always going to, no matter how good it is, there will always be the real human, whatever it is, voice or voice acting or whatever, screenwriting that is better, and it will have that uniqueness to it. Something that a computer cannot always manufacture. Over time, maybe that will, but I don't foresee that. I don't think that's a now issue, in my opinion.
Yeah. So the Actors Union, the Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, they just announced an ethical AI agreement with Replica. But according to this, the industry veterans feel misrepresented, saying nobody in our community approved this. And they don't seem to be very happy with it. But they're trying to figure out how they can use AI in game development, television, whatever it is, and not piss off the unions. Because what union is going to want AI in any form?
Zero. Never.
Zero. because it's only going to take away from their work. But here they've got supposedly a thing worked out that will allow them to start doing this. I think it makes sense for video games, especially if you have a video game that has hundreds of voices and a bunch of them are not really important, just side voices for little side quests. If you could generate a ton of those, because later, what if you want to add more content? If you want to add more content later and you want to continue with that person, you have to keep track of where they are. They need to be available to record more lines. Maybe they won't be available. With an AI, you don't have to worry about that.
But see, you just touched on exactly where AI will be useful in situations where it is not a key element of the game. You're not going to have the main protagonist being an AI, but you might have AI being the random person on the street that you bump into and they go, "Hey man, get the hell out of the way," or whatever. That to me is where AI really, at least right now and in the immediate future, to me that's the big use case for it, is specifically situations like that. And in movies and television, Brian, where you've got a passing, a passing person on in an anime or some sort of animated thing that makes a comment, that the background chatter. That could easily be done with AI. It's not pivotal.
Yeah, you don't need to get 50 people to sit there and record, what do they say, watermelon or something like that? That's what they say is watermelon. Do you ever know that?
I have no freaking idea what you're talking about.
People in the background scenes of television shows, they don't always come up with little conversations to have. They, like if you say watermelon, your lips move in a way that's not discernible as saying the same word over and over. As long as they don't pick up what you're saying, a lot of times they'll be saying something like that in the background so that they look like they're having a conversation, but they're not saying anything to each other. They're just kind of making facial expressions like, "I just said something funny," and responding to it. But they're just saying, I think it's watermelon is is the term that a lot of them end up saying, because you don't see a repeated movement of your lips.
Walla, not watermelon. Walla.
Walla? Well, I'm sure that they could do.
Walla.
I've heard
yeah.
watermelon.
Maybe so. Yeah, I'm reading a
yeah, they'll do it.
The sound effect imitating the murmur of a crowd in the background. A group of actors is brought together in post-production to create a murmur known as a Walla group.
Walla. Okay, so yeah. So they'll all say that, and it kind of creates a general murmur in the background of a bunch of conversations without having to have people figure out, well, how are we going to have a conversation that's fake?
Yeah.
And record and memorizing all these lines.
Yeah, a fake conversation. So again, in use cases like that, not only do I think AI is good, I think it's the perfect situation for it, because it is something that can be easily replicated, for lack of a better term. I think it's great for that.
Well, what I think is going to be hilarious is at some point, like they have a scene where, camera's panning through and it like picks up on some side conversation that's just totally makes no sense. Like it just barely picks up this AI conversation in the corner of something that makes zero sense. I'm sure that'll happen at some point. People are like, what in the world?
But see, let me make this point to you. Unlike the Walla effect, which is just people muttering nonsense, this can and will be a real conversation. It will just be an AI conversation that's taking place.
And it'll be more likely to sound real, because, I mean, if a mic gets too close to somebody and they hear Walla, 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 people are like, what in the world is that? Yeah. Why are they saying Walla?
Yeah, it don't make any sense.
So on this, I just wanted to mention on this agreement. So here's what the people who made the agreement say. So with this agreement, we have achieved fully informed consent and fair compensation when it comes to use of our members' voices and performances. We are proud to work with Replica in leading the way to make it easy for companies to access SAG-AFTRA's world-renowned talent in an ethical manner that ensures consent and fair compensation for their contributions. This agreement also paves the way for other companies to follow their lead. I think if anything, if what this does is make it so that their voices can't be fed into a machine and trained on, I mean, that's, I think, all you'll be able to accomplish with this. I mean, is that what they consider ethical? They don't seem to go into a lot of details on what this is going to do. They said here that Replica has pages of examples that they say are pretty terrible, with these voices. I don't know if this is just setting up for the future, because I don't think AI is in a spot at the moment for this to really take over, but I think they are definitely worried about it.
No, it's exactly what you just described. It specifically comes down to the training, at least from what I understand. The training of these AI models is that you cannot and will not use people that you're paying, having them coming and recording strings of text to feed into an AI model to then not use those people and then have AI do all of it. I think that is a big issue that the unions are fighting for. And I'm not a big union fan at all. I think that's woefully obvious. But I also understand what they're saying. I mean, that's a serious problem.
Maybe we'll see here in the next couple of years. This will get to where they'll come up with some sort of not really a crowdfunding, but the equivalent to crowdfunding, where you'll have people coming in and say, for $1, I'll read a script to you. And just start feeding tons of different voices in. And, is that a legitimate way to train AI? If you pay people a small amount of money to read to you some lines of script so they can test getting different voices for using in the background of having just a variety of different voice sounds.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure there's a better way than training off of professional people's voices, because you don't always have to have that type of a voice. You don't have to have a booming professional, someone who does voices all the time.
Hello.
You don't have to have them for the background voices.
Yeah.
You're like with someone like you. They don't need to go in and train in AI.
No, I think much folks would much rather have me be a background voice than a primary voice. I think that's where many folks would fall.
But I do think that I think we'll start seeing where people can do kind of like the Fiverr. People can come in and make a little bit of money to help train a model, if it comes down to because this is something people can do. People with a microphone or even a phone could record audio and feed into these generated models.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, I think I don't think this solves the problem, but, I think it just kind of puts a little bit of here's some limitations we're going to put on you when it comes to professional work like this. Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about AI and a little bit of maybe overreach, Brian. The ESRB, that's the group that is responsible for the ETM ratings that you see on video games. That's the ESRB rating. And no, Brian, this is not a headline straight out of communist China. They are asking the FTC about the possibility of using facial scanning technology to check people's ages. Man, the Chinese Communist Party would be proud with this headline, Brian. This is right up their alley. This is literally what they do in China.
Yeah, and this is something they'd actually did. Remember when they unveiled where these kids had to check in with their phone?
Yes.
And the phone would scan their face to make sure that they could log in for their 1 hour that they had per week or something like that. That's what this comes down to. This is something where, first of all, this is fine if this is something that I, as a parent, say, I want to make sure that it's my child logging in to something. Now, I guess if I'm trying to make it so that I just don't see the point of it, though, in that type of a situation. Like, who are you preventing it from getting in? This is more for anonymous, maybe registering for a site. That's where this would make sense. It's not a login technology like China was using it for. They say here specifically it does not confirm the identity of users. This is just to check ages. So this is more like if you're trying to create a limitation of you have to be 13 and older, you have to be 16 and older, 18 and older to create an account.
This is the equivalent of showing your ID. You're 18. You have to show your ID to buy cigarettes. I mean, it's show your ID to buy alcohol. I mean, that's what they're trying to do with this. You need to be.
How accurate is it?
Well, I don't know how accurate it is, but the whole point is, Brian, I'm sure you did as well. Well, I don't know if ESRB was around in your time. And I mean, like the early games, I don't think had ratings and stuff like that, but I spent
not the same.
I played my fair share of rated M video games before I was 18 or 16, whatever the mature categories. All the Call of Duty games I played, and
Wolfenstein 3D was my first purchase game. I was 12 years old.
I don't know that was. There's no way that game had an ESRB rating when it came out, though.
Well, no, but I mean, it was the equivalent at the time. I mean, had Nazis
rated,
all over
rated
the place.
M title. So I mean that's kind of the. And again, what do you do that under? I to get these rated M games when I was under. Is it 16 or 18? I don't remember what the rated M. I think it might be 16. My parents bought the game with me when I bought the game. They knew what it was. They were the ones that signed off on it, for lack of a better term, for me to be able to play those. So is that not going to be allowed under this proposal? Because seemingly not. If you have to be, and that's the thing. First of all, the ESRB is not a rule. It's a guideline that is followed. It is not law by any stretch. I mean, you can go see a rated R movie as a child. You just can't buy the ticket yourself. It's not a law. It's a rule. But if you are a parent and want to consent to that, how the hell's that going to work?
I think more of what this would be a better option for is something like OnlyFans. If, getting into a porn site or registering to stream on a porn site, well, whatever you consider OnlyFans to be.
But let me make a counterpoint to something like that. For OnlyFans, right, you have to buy that content. You don't have a debit.
I've not been on it. I assume that it's some sort of free tier.
Okay. Well, that I don't.
What I'm saying is there's content that you would be able to go and see without having to pitch them all the money right away, because they try to tease you in, right? And
I guess you're right.
That's where I'd be more concerned of, and now that I have a daughter, her, when she turns 16, going up and trying to sign up for one of these things, I would like it if they had something that said, all right, put the camera up to your face and we'll make sure, or it's scanning their live video feed that they're getting ready to broadcast out and saying, hey, this person is questionable whether or not they're 18. How about we flag them for a verification check? That's where I can see this not being you're going to, create an account. You could do that, but have it scan the videos in real time to make sure that people that are underage catch the ones that are obviously underage and prevent them from streaming, if this is that accurate.
Yeah, I could see that being a much better use case than preventing a 15-year-old from playing Call of Duty because, he doesn't fit the ESRB scale. I definitely can see that.
And my other concern is this is going to be very easy to manipulate and bypass.
Of course.
And so there's not going to be a dead set way other than, is this going to be the future where before you go into a club, they don't check your ID necessarily anymore. You step into kind of like those airport, where you go and put your arms up there and they scan you.
Oh yeah.
You step onto the two marks on the floor for your feet, and then they do a quick facial scan and say, hey, you're roughly, 21.
Can I get a TSA pre-check for that, the equivalent?
Yeah, it'd be nice. And I think that's kind of the future. That's where I would see it being better. Not like I want to create a Facebook account. Let's make sure you're 13, scan your face. I just don't see that being a realistic long-term. Because once you get the account created, are they going to check that every login?
Well, that's the issue, right? I mean, that's the issue with all this stuff is it's one-time verifications. I mean, you can slip into a bar under 21 with a fake ID. It's not like every time you go to the bar. And what do? They either stamp your hand or give you something to indicate that you've been checked and you're over 21. Yep. So when you go to the bar, guess what? You're not showing your ID again.
Yeah, and I that's where I don't see those as real-world solutions right now. But I do see scanning content, Twitch content, OnlyFans content, whatever it is. If you're going to be saying that you're streaming content on a certain platform that has to be a certain age, don't make them scan it when they start the stream. Scan the stream. Recognize, that there's underage. And if it's an OnlyFans account, maybe you want to catch that they have kids showing up on those streams that aren't supposed to be. Right? That's an adult website. You shouldn't be, hey, come meet my family on OnlyFans. I don't see, maybe they do. I just don't see that as a positive thing that they should be doing. And so that'd be the perfect place to prevent that sort of thing is just create an automated system and then have a manual verification by a human afterwards. But this would get rid of 90% of the people that are obviously of age. And then you're checking that small single-digit percentage of the people that maybe are close to the age of consent or that are streaming that aren't, supposed to be on there.
All right, Brian.
That's my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Much better than the alternative. Where can people find you online?
Hey, if you want to find me, of course, you can find me at Boise Computer on X, or if you want to go to at Brian Eldridge on Gab, Getter, Truth Social, wherever else. Of course, my blog is biteoftech.com, and if you want to go to our website, just go to infectionpodcast.com and make sure you check out in the upper right-hand side where it says join our server on Discord. If you do that, you're more than welcome to join one of our 11 ARC servers. We also have a politics section if you want to go hang out and then check out that. Or just get a hold of Nick or I, send us a message. If you want to watch the live show, you can do that through Twitch or YouTube, or the upload is after the fact on Rumble. We also upload the podcast forms, the lower right-hand side, whatever platform, device, whatever's most simple for you. You can check it out there. And if you go to the particular show notes, we get those uploaded by the end of the show. They have all the links and things that we refer to while we're doing the live show. Also, a video and audio player built right into that page. It makes it really easy to follow along, or if you're listening to the podcast, to be able to catch and see some of the videos that we played. If you want to support us, there's a support menu option up top, or you can go to infectionpodcast.com/support.
Yes, sir. You can do both of those. Brian, thanks again as always. Greatly appreciated. Again, congrats on the welcoming in the new one, and we'll be back here sometime next week. If you want to check me out online, you can follow me over on X at Nicholas M. Craig. You can check out my daily antics at nickcraig.com. I host the Wilmington's Morning News podcast. I'll also be on, if you're a cable news person, I'll be on Newsmax this weekend on the Wendy Bell program. So check your local listings for that. And as Brian noted, our website, infectionpodcast.com. That's where you need to go if you missed any portion of today's show. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.